Welcome to online CT class. In this class, we will discuss the synopsis of the chapter Semiconductor Electronics, Materials, Devices and Simple Circuits. So first coming to semiconductor devices. So they are called solid state devices. So semiconductors are the class of materials whose conductivity lies between those of conductors and insulators. Their behavior lies exactly in between that of conductors and insulators. They don't have very good conductivity like conductors, or neither they are not so bad conductors as insulators. So their characteristics lie in between. So comparing the resistivity of conductors, semiconductors and insulators. So conductors have resistivity of the order of 10 power minus 2 to 10 power minus 8 ohm meter. Semiconductors have resistivity of the order of 10 power minus 5 to 10 power 6. Insulators have resistivity of the order of 10 power 11 to 10 to the power 19 ohm meter. If you consider the conductivity, it is just the reciprocal of resistivity. 10 to the power 2 to 10 to the power 8 for conductors. For semiconductors, it is 10 power 5 to 10 power minus 6. For insulators, it is 10 power minus 11 to 10 power minus 19 Simon per meter. So, the classification of these materials into conductors, semiconductors and insulators, it is done by the basis of the band theory of solids. Germanium and silicon are the semiconductors which are widely used in solid state electronics, as these materials can be obtained in the purest form and it can be crystallized very easily. That's why germanium and silicon are widely used in semiconductor electronics. Now, semiconductors can be classified into two categories. One is intrinsic semiconductor, other is extrinsic semiconductors. So intrinsic semiconductors are the semiconductors in their pure form. They are called pure semiconductors. They contain equal number of electrons and holes at a temperature greater than absolute zero. So whenever a bond is broken, then there will be electron hole pair created. So in the case of intrinsic semiconductor, number of electrons per unit volume will be equal to number of holes per unit volume. For every hole there will be an electron, so there will be equal number of electrons and holes. So in case of intrinsic semiconductor, electrical conductivity is due to equal number of free electrons and holes. So Ni is intrinsic carrier density, we say intrinsic carrier density, that is number of intrinsic charge carriers per unit volume. So this is number of electrons per unit volume, this is number of holes per unit volume, all of them are equal. So if you consider a semiconductor in pure form, it is said to be intrinsic semiconductor. That means you take silicon or germanium alone, so there is nothing extra added to it, that is called intrinsic semiconductor. But intrinsic semiconductors have very low conductivity, that's why they find very less application. So in order to enhance the electrical conductivity of a semiconductor, we go for a different class of semiconductor called extrinsic semiconductor. So in order to increase the electrical conductivity of a semiconductor, you have to increase the temperature. This is one way in which you can increase the conductivity, or either you should increase the population of holes or you should increase the population of electrons, so that one will become majority, other will become minority. If hole population becomes more than the electron population, then the kind of semiconductor we obtain, we call it as p-type semiconductor. If electron population is greater than the hole population, then we get n-type semiconductor. So these kind of semiconductors are called doped semiconductors or impurity semiconductor or extrinsic semiconductor. Now these extrinsic semiconductors are impure or doped semiconductors. The number of electrons and holes are not equal in these semiconductors. There are two types as we have mentioned, p-type and n-type. Let us see one by one. N-type semiconductor is obtained by adding pentavalent impurity to the pure crystal of silicon or germanium like phosphorus, antimony, arsenic or bismuth to the intrinsic semiconductor. So if you add any one of these impurity in traces to a pure semiconductor, you will get n-type semiconductor. So because of this, the number of free electrons is increased, hence the majority carriers are electrons, so Ne will be greater than Nh. Electron concentration will be greater than hole concentration. So such a semiconductor we call it as n-type semiconductor. Coming to p-type semiconductor, it is obtained by adding trivalent impurity. Trivalent means acceptor impurity, electron accepting species. Donor impurity means electron donating species. Acceptor impurity means electron accepting species. So adding element like aluminum, indium, boron, gallium. So these are trivalent impurities to a intrinsic semiconductor. So because of this, number of holes will be greater than number of electrons, resulting semiconductor we call it as p-type semiconductor. Now notice one thing, both p-type and n-type semiconductors are electrically neutral. Don't get the notion that n-type is negatively charged, p-type is positively charged. It is electron concentration, the whole concentration that will be greater, not the electron number itself. That is one thing. Another thing is the added impurities, you are adding phosphorus atom, you are adding aluminum atom. So atom that you are adding is electrically neutral. Before that crystal was electrically neutral. So the resulting is also electrically neutral. And for any intrinsic or extrinsic semiconductor, Ne into Nh is equal to Ni square, where Ni is intrinsic carrier density. That means number of intrinsic charge carriers per unit volume. Proceeding further, the next concept is p-n junction. So we have p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor. What happens if you create both on a single crystal? Then the resulting device we call it as p-n junction. So when you consider a p-n junction, there will be p-type on one side, n-type on other side. In between there will be what we call it as charge depletion region. So there will be metallic contact at the ends for electrical connections. So this will be anode, this will be cathode. So circuit symbol for p-n junction is this. So the junction formed between p-type and n-type semiconductor is called p-n junction. A junction without any external voltage applied across it is called unbiased p-n junction. If no battery is connected to it, it is called unbiased p-n junction. Now this kind of p-n junction, it is characterized by three things. One is the junction potential of the order of 0.1 to 0.3 volt. So at the charge depletion region what we have here, so there will be junction potential developed. So it is of the order of 0.1 to 0.3 volt. And there is charge depletion region as we have seen. Then a strong electric field across the junction. Since there is potential difference across the junction, there will be strong electric field also. Now when you connect p-n junction to a external circuit, then what we get is a biased p-n junction. So connecting appropriate voltages to the appropriate terminals with appropriate polarity to a device is called biasing. So there are two ways to bias a p-n junction. So p-n junction has two terminals, that's why it is called diode. It has two kinds of semiconductor, one p-type, one n-type. There are two regions, that's why it is called diode. So when you consider a p-n junction in forward bias, so there are two ways to bias the junction. So one is forward bias, other is reverse bias. Now forward bias means the p-type is connected to positive of the battery, n-type is connected to negative of the battery. So in forward bias, the junction easily conducts. If you reverse the terminals, that is p-type to negative and n-type to positive, then it is reverse bias. So it does not conduct under reverse bias. Now if you consider forward biased p-n junction, Now, whatever the charge depletion width was there, so on connecting it to battery, the charge depletion region width decreases. So width of depletion region decreases under forward bias. So the positive charges are pushed towards the junction from this side, negative charges are pushed towards the junction this side. So what happens? The junction becomes narrower. So this is the graphical representation of the barrier potential. So when there is no battery connected, barrier potential is this much. Now when you apply battery with low voltage, so barrier potential decreases. That means no more number of charge carriers can cross the junction. Now if you apply high voltage, then it reduces to this. So as you increase the bias voltage in forward bias, the barrier potential goes on decreasing. So hence conductivity increases. Now when it is in forward bias, a diode offers negligible resistance. Ideal diode should offer zero resistance, and it behaves like a closed switch, and here external voltage opposes the junction voltage. External voltage is against the junction voltage. Polarities will be opposite. That is what we can see in a forward biased PN junction. If we consider reverse bias, so in reverse bias, the P type is connected to negative of the battery, N type is connected to positive of the battery. So junction barrier width increases. So barrier width increases means potential difference across the junction increases. So here this graph represents the variation of potential with bias potential. So without battery, the junction potential was this much. Now with battery, it actually increases. So you need more energy to cross the junction. So in reverse bias mode, PN junction does not conduct. So in reverse bias, diode offers very large resistance, ideally infinite resistance. It behaves like an open switch, and external voltage aids the junction voltage. That means they add up. Junction voltage and external voltage, they get added. Now coming to the next concept, that is rectifier. So we know that diode conducts only in one particular direction. So this property of diode can be used to convert AC signal into DC. So a device which converts, or a circuit which converts AC to DC is called rectifier. So there are two kinds of rectifiers, half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier. So half wave rectifier consists of a single diode. It is connected to secondary of a step down transformer. So the circuit is like this. There is a load resistance and it goes back to transformer. Now when the input sine wave is incident or it is supplied, let us say at point A, the positive half cycle starts, then this becomes positive, this becomes negative. So since it is positive, so diode conducts. So positive half cycle is retraced as it is in the output, which is drawn across load resistance. In the next half cycle, negative half cycle, polarities change. This becomes negative, this becomes positive. Now the diode is reverse biased, so it won't conduct. There is no output. Next, again positive half cycle comes, it conducts. Negative half cycle, it will absorb. So hence what you get is a pulsating DC output. Since it is pulsating, you will not get a stagnant voltage, and efficiency of this is also very less. So it finds very less applications. That's why we go for full wave rectifier. In case of full wave rectifier, instead of one diode, we have two diodes, and in the secondary of a transformer, we have what we call it as center tap. So if total number of turns is n, at n by 2 turns, there is one terminal. From here to here, n by 2, here to here, n by 2. If that is the case, if voltage applied here is V, here it will be V by 2, here it will be V by 2. That's how it is. Now, when positive half cycle starts, let us say this point becomes positive. So diode D1 is forward biased, then this will be negative, D2 is reverse biased. So D1 conducts, current through this flows this way, goes through the load resistance, goes back to center tap. So there is output absorbed across RL. Then when negative half cycle starts, then D2 conducts, this becomes positive, this becomes negative. D1 doesn't conduct. Now current flows this way and it goes through the resistor in the same direction, so negative half cycle also gets converted to positive. Next, this D1 conducts, you'll get this. Next, D2 conducts, you'll get this. So hence you'll get continuous DC output, but which is sinusoidally varying with respect to time. That is what we can see. So this sinusoidal variation of DC current, what we get, it is called ripple. So in order to remove this ripple, we'll use additional circuitry called filter. So in your syllabus we have only capacitor input filter. So what it does is it will reduce the variation of the output voltage with respect to time. So the full wave rectifier output is fed across the filter. This is the filter circuit. So there will be a capacitor connected in parallel just before the load resistance. Now what happens when positive half cycle starts, the voltage across this capacitor goes on increasing and capacitor gets fully charged when it reaches the peak. Now after this it starts decreasing, the voltage starts decreasing here. So when it starts decreasing, voltage across capacitor starts decreasing, then capacitor starts discharging. It was charged to the peak voltage, now the voltage across it is reduced, so it will start discharging. So due to the discharge, the fall of the voltage, the rate of fall of voltage is decreased. So instead of coming along the original path, it goes along this particular path. So before this cycle ends, the capacitor is completely discharged. Again it gets fully charged. Again it gets charged, discharge, charge, discharge. So what happens? It will forget the original path of variation as shown in this. So it will follow this kind of a variation. So variation is much reduced. If the capacitance value is much higher, then you will get a better action of filter. So the curve becomes flattened, so variation is reduced. So hence the filter circuit reduces the variation in the DC output of rectifier. Then moving on to a next concept, that is a special purpose diode called Zener diode. So it is a special purpose diode designed to operate in reverse breakdown region. So what we call it as Zener breakdown, and the breakdown voltage at which the junction breakdown takes place, that is what we call it as Zener voltage. Circuit symbol for Zener diode is shown like this. Now this Zener diode has a specific breakdown voltage, so beyond which it has adjustable resistance in reverse bias. Remember, all these special purpose diodes are used in reverse bias except the LED. So what it does is it will be used as a voltage regulator. It will protect the equipment from the voltage surge. So the unregulated rectified voltage is connected across this circuit. So here is a series resistance, or here is a Zener diode. Zener diode, they are available with various configuration of Zener voltage, that is breakdown voltage, from 2 volt to 2000 volt. So wide range of Zener diodes are available. So the equipment to be connected, let us say it operates at 9 volt. Let us say you need to operate a car stereo system which operates at 9 volt. So then choose a Zener diode of 9 volt Zener voltage. So it is connected across this. Now when the voltage, this Vi, is less than the Zener voltage, then there is no breakdown. So this is already reverse bias, so current through Zener diode becomes 0. So because of this, entire voltage applies across RL. Now when input voltage is greater than Zener voltage, then what happens? Part of it appears across this, part of it appears across this. So current flows through this. So voltage across this will be maintained at Vz only. It won't get increased. So whatever the voltage is across this, same voltage appears across RL. So if there is any further increase in voltage, then Zener diode adjusts its resistance in reverse bias such that current is increased so that voltage across this remains constant. Current increases, resistance decreases, so voltage across it remains constant. So hence the maximum voltage across this RL will be equal to Vz. Beyond that it won't increase. So Zener diode can be used as a voltage regulator. So here it is. If V1 is less than Vz, there is no voltage across Zener diode. If V1 is greater than Vz, the Zener voltage is Vz, and the remaining voltage appears across the series resistors, not RL, RS. If V1 varies, voltage across RS also varies, keeping Vz constant. So this is action of Zener diode. Now notice one thing, whatever the current drawn by the device, voltage across Zener diode always remains same. So it is independent of the current drawn from the device. So in reverse bias, Zener diode maintains constant voltage across the load independent of variation of input voltage and the load. So there can be variation in the load, there can be variation in the input voltage, still it will maintain the same voltage across the load, hence it can be used as a voltage regulator. Now moving on to next concept, that is optoelectronic devices. So semiconductor diodes which generate charge carriers by using incident photons, they are called optoelectronic devices. So they generate charge carriers like holes and electrons, which is based on the incident photons on it, incident light on it. So they are called optoelectronic devices. So it is the technological hybrid of optics and semiconductor electronics. So there are three major optoelectronic devices. One is light emitting diode, so LED, which is used for the commercial, nowadays it is used for lighting purpose, and also earlier it was used for display purpose. Then photodiodes, they are used for detecting optical signals. Then photovoltaic devices like solar cell, which convert light energy into electrical energy. So that is all about the semiconductor electronics. Now we'll come to the next part of the chapter, that is digital electronics. So the first thing that we come across here is a logic gate. So logic gate is an electronic circuit which makes logic decisions. So logic decisions means let there be n number of inputs for this, there will be only one output for it. Such a circuit we call it as logic gate. So most commonly used logic gates are AND, OR, NOT, NOR and NAND gate. So AND, OR and NOT, they are basic gates. NOR and NAND, they are derived from them, and NAND and NOR act as universal gates. So the next definition is truth table. So truth table for a logic gate is the list of its output for different possible combinations of inputs. For different combination of input, what can be the output, that list we call it as truth table. So let us see the gates one by one. OR gate, so it performs the logic addition, so it is called OR operation. It is represented by addition sign, plus sign. So if A and B are inputs, then the output Y will be equal to A plus B. So this is the logic function of the OR gate. So if you take the circuit symbol is given by this, and the truth table for this is what we call it as truth table. What are the possible inputs for the gate? So A, B both are 0, A is 1, B is 0, A is 0, B is 1, A is 1, B is 1. So in this case, in the truth table you can list out 0 plus 0 is 0, 1 plus 0 is 1, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is also 1. So they follow binary algebra. They follow binary algebra. Now coming to the next gate, that is AND gate. So it is represented by dot sign. So it is actually logic multiplication. So here output will be A into B. If A and B are inputs, the product of the inputs will be output. So circuit symbol for AND gate is like this. So Y is equal to A into B. If A and B both are 0, then the output is 0. If any one of the inputs is 0, A or B is 0, you'll get always 0. You'll get 1 only when both the inputs are 1. This is your AND gate. Then the next one is NOT gate. So NOT gate is the prime operation or negation operator. So if A is the input, then output will be A bar. So it is A bar means complement of A. So if A is equal to 0, complement of A is 1. If A is equal to 1, complement of A is 0. So this is the function of NOT gate. So it is used to invert a given signal. Then coming to NOR gate. So NOR gate is the combination of OR gate and NOT gate. So first it will perform OR function, then it will perform NOT function. So the symbol for NOR gate is shown like this. So this is the symbol for NOR gate. Write OR gate and write a bubble here. So it behaves as if there is OR gate connected to NOT gate. So circuit truth table is exactly reverse of what we had in OR gate. In OR gate, everywhere you get 1 except for the first column, first row. So in this case, you'll get 1 in only first row, rest of the things are zeros. Then coming to NAND gate, it is combination of NOT and AND. So the output of NAND gate is just the inverse of AND gate. So if you take the circuit symbol, it is similar to what we did in the previous case. We'll write AND gate, then we'll put a bubble. So it behaves as if there is AND gate and NOT gate connected together. Look at the truth table, it is exactly inverse of what we had for AND gate. Now Boolean equations for the logic gates. So for OR gate, y is equal to A plus B. AND gate, y is equal to A into B. NOT gate, y is equal to A bar. NOR gate, y is equal to A plus B whole bar. NAND gate, AB whole bar. XOR or XOR gate. So exclusive OR, y is equal to AB bar plus A bar B. So these are the some of the Boolean expressions. So here we come across one more thing called De Morgan's laws. So according to De Morgan's laws, A plus B whole bar is equal to A bar B bar. AB whole bar is equal to A bar plus B bar. So these are called De Morgan's laws. So a logic circuit can be used to simplify a Boolean expression, or a Boolean expression can be used to simplify logic circuit. So that completes your semiconductor electronics, materials, devices, simple circuits and digital electronics. Thank you.